Yep. Oh, okay. So it's kind of jumping the gun here, but Stargate Origins was such a monumental and baffling failure that I actually want to talk about it, like some kind of post-mortem report, and why this pointless addition to the Stargate canon was just so bad. But before I get to that, this video is brought to you by Paragon, my own original sci-fi novel, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook, and coming soon to Google Play. Links down below. Right off the bat, MGM's decision to bring back Stargate as a 10-minute apiece web series on some obscure streaming site is one of the most confusing and bad moves to be taken with any pre-established IP. Say what you want about CBS and Star Trek Discovery, but at least they put in some effort. At least they spent the money and championed another Star Trek show as a flagship series, but spending what looks like under $1 million for some streaming site no one will ever use just reeks of laziness. The format and release of Origins seems less like MGM actually wanting to bring back Stargate because they like the franchise, and more like them needing to make something otherwise they'd lose the rights. I can't say for certain if that's true, but that's the only explanation I can come up with. Stargate is an epic space adventure franchise. It needs a big budget, it needs action, it needs elaborate VFX, and there is a fan base eager to see something new. But the lack of any significant budget is really what makes this show such a chore to sit through. Production value wise, it's competent, I guess, but it's so obviously trying to tell a story with no money, it ends up damaging virtually everything else. Sound design is poor, VFX look like they were thrown together in Adobe After Effects, and the sets are clearly tiny. SG-1 and Atlantis never matched the quality of the original movie's visuals, but at least stone and metal looked like stone and metal. But in Origins, all of the temples and columns look like styrofoam, and the Stargate itself looks like a toy. There's none of the grandiose, expansive spaces and gorgeously detailed sets, or nicely designed spaceships, because the money simply isn't there. This throne room looks no bigger than my living room, and the cramped nature of every location makes the directions suffer. Having the actors crammed into these small spaces means the blocking and fight choreography has no room to breathe. What should be big introductions and kinetic dramatic beats are instead reduced to people awkwardly standing around waiting for their cues. It's no wonder why there are so many uncomfortable close-ups, as the camera crews probably couldn't fit everyone in. The generally cheap nature of the production is also made all the more jarring when footage from the original Stargate movie is reused throughout. Cutting from a dirt cheap web show to a big budget, well-crafted sci-fi adventure never works. Out of the cast, only Connor Trinneer escapes unscathed. Trinneer has revealed himself to be a truly talented character actor, and he should be in way more stuff. It's just a shame his skills are so underused here. He puts in a good performance, but he doesn't exactly have a lot to work with. Ellie Gall actually had potential as a young Catherine Langford. Gall clearly has a lot of charisma and screen presence, but she's underserved by a bad script and no chemistry to speak of with her co-stars. But it's really not her fault how bad this is. James and Wasif are such one-note supporting characters with irritating personalities. Previous Stargate shows certainly had humour, but these two were dialed up into cartoon mode from minute one. All of their funny bits fell completely flat, and the aforementioned lack of chemistry with anyone else makes them so annoying to watch. The villains aren't much better, Nazi or otherwise. Brooke and Aset are just nothing. Brooke is neither threatening nor fun to watch. It's as if they found the first guy who could do a semi-decent accent and went, yep, sure. And Aset has none of the gravitas or pomposity of later Stargate villains. Even Baal was better. But despite the low budget, was there a chance a good story could have been told here? Of course there was a chance, yes, but that chance wasn't taken. Once again, the lack of a proper budget results in dull direction and a generally dull script. This is Stargate, for God's sake. It's almost impressive how boring this actually is. The lack of sets effectively anchors entire swathes of the show to these locations for way too long. We start at a hangar, go to a temple, then inside a tent, back to the temple, and then in the hangar again. The strain this script goes through to stay in these locations also turns the drama into a complete drag. The majority of the characters are completely underwritten, but the drama between them is overwritten. I swear to God, Catherine, James, and Wasif have the exact same conversation about 5 times. The same goes for Paul and the Nazis. I actually viewed this show as its movie cut, which the original format makes even worse. Because the story was originally cut into 10-minute chunks, the first and third acts of the story happen in no time, while the second act goes on forever. What pisses me off about the story the most, though, was the last-minute fan-service pandering retcon bullshit. Oh wow, it was Aset's idea to form SG-1, which she implanted into Catherine's mind and removed her memories of the entire trip to the... So not only was the entire mini-adventure pointless as it achieves virtually nothing, but it also removes a ton of agency from the Catherine Langford character. She apparently wasn't acting on her own free will, but merely following the brainwashing of a non-villain she can't remember. When Stargate Origins was first announced, I was honestly hoping for a complete reboot. I pictured a cool Indiana Jones style adventure romp through a Stargate, and honestly, it was kind of fun. Switching to a Tomb Raiding-esque adventure with some ancient aliens and spaceships sounded like a cool spin on Stargate's established military sci-fi slant. As a full reboot, a cast of fresh faces would be free to explore this galaxy full of ancient alien civilizations and mythological allegories. It could have been so much fun, but this bending over backwards to contort the story into the original continuity is painful. It adds nothing good and subtracts from what's already there. So Stargate Origins, did it suck? Yes, of course it did. When I hear people calling Star Trek Discovery a cheap cash-in or that the creators don't care, I am honestly baffled. At least CBS treats Star Trek like a valuable flagship asset. At least they dropped over $300 million to ensure it could stand alongside the best of modern day TV. But Stargate Origins? This is the cheap cash-in. Some quick thing MGM didn't have to spend money on and barely even had to release, all to potentially squeeze some extra bucks out of fans who wanted a one-stop shop for old Stargate content. Stargate as a franchise still has so much potential. Whether as a continuation or a reboot, the creative concepts, fun characters and thrilling adventure could be brought back better than ever before, but Stargate Origins is a complete and utter waste of time. Ben Jones asks, favourite character from The Expanse and why? This is a really tough one, but I'm gonna go with Bobby Draper. For one thing, she is badass as all hell, and the Martian power armor is super cool, but Draper also has a great arc, beginning as a nationalistic marine who has her perspective suddenly opened up when she's thrown into the middle of things. I sometimes think she would have made a better protagonist than James Holden. If you like my videos, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay up to date on all my new uploads. You can see videos early on my Patreon for as little as $5 a month. Speaking of which, I'd like to quickly thank my patrons David Phelps, Chris Lord, Andy Luke, Larry Bennett, James Vanderhaeg, T. Stoney, L. Carton and Billy Coleman. Until next time, have a good one, and as always, live long and prosper.